So just come out to start the day and come out to the van. I literally took this thing down the car wash yesterday and look what happened. Like, I have never seen a more severe seagull diarrhea attack than this. So as you saw, my day didn't really get off to the best start. But you know what? The sun is shining. I've gotten over it. I've cleaned it up. I've gotten over it. Honestly, I have never ever in my life seen that amount of bird. Well, I'm not going to swear in the first couple of minutes of my video. I've never seen that amount of bird excrement in my life. Never. I mean, like where my van is parked, like right up against my house, the only conclusion I can come to is a bird has just literally just perched on the guttering and just sort of perched its arse just over the edge of my roof and then just diarrheaed all over my front of my van. And I'm not joking, I'm not lying. I took it down to the power wash place down Brighton Marina yesterday. I washed it yesterday, and then it couldn't have waited 2 days. He couldn't. I reckon seagulls have got a lot more. You know, like they say dolphins and stuff, and pigs are really intelligent. I think seagulls have got that sort of level of intelligence. I think they've got a lot more intelligence than they make out. You know, Brighton seagulls are famous for basically being a bunch of pricks. They are experts at stealing fish off of your fish and chips, donuts, anything really, any food that you've got. They're absolutely experts. Like eagles chasing that mice, they have become experts at hovering above, seeing potential victims, and they know the tourists as well. They know the tourists in Brighton. The locals in Brighton, they know the score. If you've got food on the beach, you've got to look after it. Because seagulls will have it. The tourists, they don't. They'll put a bag of donuts sort of like a couple of feet away from where they're sitting. What are you doing? Seagulls. Anyway, I really am rambling. You're not here to talk about seagull poo or listen to me talk about seagull poo or Brighton seagulls as a whole. You're here for today's topics. Now, as always with my driving videos, I will timestamp all the various different topics I talk about today. I'm currently in Worthing. We're going to drive back to Brighton. I don't think we'll make it back to Brighton on the video. I basically do these videos till I run out of things to talk about, really. But today, yeah, I just want to go over some of the various different topics that I've talked about in my videos over the week. Mainly the big one that I've done quite a few videos on, that's got the comment section quite spicy in some of these videos, is my decision, or my first flickering of doubt really, to whether to vote Labour or not. Other things I'm going to talk about today, the comments got quite spicy on the video that I'd done about Andy the Gabby Cabby and his video that he'd done on immigration. It wasn't so much that people got spicy in the comment section, it was my opinions on Russia and Ukraine. The whole video that I'd done about Andy was that he hasn't really done enough research on the topic of immigration. And a lot of people thought that I probably haven't done enough research on the topic of Russia and Ukraine. So we'll get into that as well, shall we? That'll be a spicy one yet again in the comment section. But first, yeah, my opinion. Am I going to be voting Labour in the next election? I've done a few videos like this, and my overriding opinions have not changed about this election. The number one goal, the number one step, the first step to getting back this country is kicking the Tories out. We all know that. My opinions hasn't changed on that. Also, my opinion hasn't changed that I'm not satisfied with these guys just losing the election. This not need to be annihilated. They need to not be able to rise again for what they've done to this country. The damage that they've done to this country, the 14 years of austerity, the way they treated us during COVID, the amount of people that have died during austerity and died during COVID. Am I going to sneeze? Oh, sorry about that, folks. I don't think I've ever sneezed on a video before. It's hay fever season, that's why. the late shutting down of care homes. I mean, you can have your opinions about lockdown, but Jesus Christ, I think everyone can have the opinion that care homes should have been locked down very early. The needless amount of deaths. I mean, you know, we can talk hours about the damage that this Tory party have done to the country, and they need to be punished, severely punished in a way that they must be absolutely annihilated in this election. My opinion hasn't changed on that. My opinion hasn't changed. If I lived in a constituency that had a Tory MP, I would be voting for whoever's best placed to de-seat that Tory MP. If I lived in a swing constituency, I would be voting for whoever is best placed to beat that Tory MP. It just so happens that I live in a now semi-comfortable Labour seat. In 2019, Lloyd Russell won the Brighton Kemp Town constituency with 51% of the vote share. It's a fairly safe Labour seat now, Brighton Kemp Town. And I personally have got very upset about the treatment of my local MP, ex-local MP now, Lloyd Russell. Now, if you haven't seen the previous videos that I've done, go check them out, but I'll give a very brief description of what's been going on. So Lloyd Russell, MP for the Labour MP for Brighton Kemp Town, a couple of days ago got a letter from the Labour Party saying that he'd be deselected from running for the Labour Party in the next election. Reason being, there was a complaint put in against him from some of his behaviour from 8 years ago. Now, I ain't going to try and pretend that I know what happened here. This could be something serious. We don't know. It could be something that is a potential banana skin for Labour and for the right-wing media to pick up on, and Keir Starmer's trying to save the Labour Party. We don't know. It's all speculation. We don't know exactly what happens. That will take a while to come out. And it wasn't necessarily that really upset me. It was what followed. So the next day, the obvious replacement for Lloyd Russell is Nancy Platts. She's a local Labour councillor, my ex-Labour councillor. She was my Labour councillor for Whitehawk in Brighton. Much loved by the community, much loved by the Labour members. Was an obvious choice to slot in for Lloyd Russell. She has the popular opinion of the local Labour members. They'd all vote for her, but also she said that she'd take on all of Lloyd's staff. This is one thing that people don't always think about when MPs get sacked or deselected and stuff. You know, they've got staff around it. They've got people that have got jobs, that rely on their jobs. So she was the obvious replacement, and also quite in line with Lloyd's politics. So it's a like-for-like replacement. If you've got something, a complaint being put in against Lloyd, and it may be a potential banana skin or something, she's an obvious fit to fit in there. And she got an interview for the position. But during that interview, it was announced that Chris Ward had been given that constituency. Now, Chris Ward is someone that is very loyal to Keir Starmer. He worked for Keir Starmer for years, was his aide, his speechwriter, and all of this does not sit right with me. It does not sit right. It's obvious that Keir Starmer is putting in place someone that is loyal to him, rather than the obvious choice of Nancy Platts. And just the fact that she didn't get a fair interview, it's not right. It doesn't sit right with me. And I can't, in all good faith, vote for him. I can't do it. Now, when I put these videos out, the sort of barrage of comments that I was mainly getting was people saying, why has it taken you this long to not want to vote Labour? Is this really what it takes? What about their opinions on Palestine, or their economic policy that seems to be very similar to the Tories? Why is it this? I really like Nancy Platts. Nancy Platts has worked tirelessly in our area. She was one of the main factors for getting down the Tory majority in that seat. The reason that seat is a relatively safe Labour seat now is because of her, and the way she's been treated hits home. It does, because I know her personally. I don't know her a great deal, but I've met her, I've chatted to her, and yeah, it hits home, and it doesn't sit right with me. And let's get real, guys. So yeah, 51% of Labour vote share in my constituency. Will my vote make a difference if it goes to the Greens? Really, in my constituency? And this is the one thing that I keep repeating, really, when I say, everyone goes on about their sacred vote. Generally, even people that are engaged in politics, they're not the ones swaying elections. The centre vote, the average voter, the person that's not really engaged in politics, that's where elections are won, not people like me. I mean, for me to regret, another load of comments came through saying, well, a vote that isn't Labour is a vote for the Tories. I'm like, for me to regret voting Green, there would have to be a hell of a lot of circumstances to come into play. First of all, in my constituency, Labour will have to have lost by 1 vote. And then, on the nation as a whole, Labour will have to lose the election because of 1 constituency. For all those circumstances to come into play is a bit far-fetched, guys, can't it? And like I said, I wouldn't be putting my vote to the Greens if I lived in a seat that was a swing seat or a Tory seat that was of importance. But I feel it's important that Labour know that they can't do these sort of things. And I think they will win that seat, but it will be with a less majority. And they need to know that they can't do these sort of things. They can't get away with these sort of things. Now, as Labour as a whole, like I said, the opinion on the election is still the same. I want Labour to win the election. Obviously, this country will be a better place with a Labour government. I don't care how left-wing you are. That is obviously the case. I mean, just the sheer fact that I know that Labour have more competent people in their ranks. And on the whole, I don't think any of them are corrupt. Just that alone, even if the Labour Party carried on the same sort of Tory policies, but actually had people that were competent in charge and people that weren't giving £200 million contracts over to Michelle Mone or spending 32 billion on test and trace to companies, just basically being corrupt as hell and competent. You look at the Tory ranks. The purge started with Boris Johnson, where Boris Johnson basically got rid of anyone that was a sniff of being pro-EU and took on his ministers were basically anyone that was just completely undivided loyal to him, which is why in the cabinet you ended up with people like Nadine Dorries, Priti Patel, Liz Truss. These people are incompetent. You look at who is best placed, who's number 1 in the rankings to take over the Tory leadership. Is that Kemi Berninock? I can't remember her name. Kemi Berninock? Insignificant. What has she done? Has she got any intelligence at all? This is what we're talking about. The Tories have got the bottom of the barrel people running this country. The real bottom of the barrel. Look at the way they're running the campaign with Rishi Sunak. Gaff after gaff. Getting him out in the rain. Getting him to play football. Who thinks that's a good idea? Getting him on Loose Women. Who's telling him within the Tory ranks that that's a good idea? Go on Loose Women. They'll love you. They are completely incompetent. So first of all, with a Labour government, you will expect a certain level of competence, even if you don't necessarily agree with all their policies, a certain level of competence. And I don't believe they're corrupt. I don't. And then next, this was the big argument from a lot of people on the left. Look at the policies that they're trying to implement. They're not going to be any different on the economy than the Tories. But, I mean, if you look what they're putting forward with their 6 key pledges, even if they get 3 of those, a massive dent into 3 of those, it will be a massive improvement to this country. NHS waiting lists, British Energy, with these 6 key pledges, they are kind of trying to appeal to every different person's politics in the country, and I do like that. You've got the NHS waiting list, which affects everyone, British Energy, renewable energy owned by the government, that's fantastic. That's what left-wing socialists have been crying out for ages. Okay, they're not promising to publicly own the trains and everything, but they're giving a bone to everyone at the moment. And immigration, the small boats. Okay, this may not be a big issue for a lot of people, but you know, the Tory policy has been incredibly wasteful on money. Of course, we're wasting so much money on hotels. I mean, I'm pretty sure you need to look into who owns all these hotels. I'm sure they're probably a Tory donor along the way, but it's incompetence. But more importantly, it's a divide, it's a wedge in this country. This issue of small boats, if Labour can make a dent in sorting that out with common sense policies, which I think they're putting forward, an asylum centre in France to process asylum claims in France, and just upping border security. Obvious thing to do, isn't it? If they can make dents in these three key areas, and Angela Rayner can really make a dent in social housing, council housing, I'd take that as a job well done. I really would, if they can. Proof is in the pudding. We don't know, but yeah, I mean, that's that's how I feel. But I can't morally vote for them in my constituency. I hate what they've done. I don't like what they've done. I really don't. And I've looked at the stats, and I think I'm in a position to be able to say, you know what, I can throw the Greens my vote. And I think it's important for the Greens to get a good vote share. It's important for Labour to know that if they do something like this, don't give a well-loved Labour councillor a fair shot at an interview, then they're going to get a chunk of their vote share taken away. And the Greens, in the popular vote, in the vote share of the country, if it's really up, Labour need to see a threat from the left-wing vote. So I think it's important. And also, I've got 3 votes from my household, which is quite interesting, because my son is 18 now, so he's going to be voting this year. I've talked to him endlessly about, you know, he's 18 years old. He's the same as me at 18 years old. I was not into politics whatsoever. He's not. But he knows. I've talked to him on length. I bore him at length with politics when we're in the van together. I bore him with politics, and I tell him the importance of getting these Tories out, because they are god-awful, the worst government we've ever had. And I think he's probably most likely going to vote Labour, but I'm not going to tell him where to vote. My wife will be voting Labour. She is you could call her a Labour cultist, really, for the main reason she works in the NHS. But more importantly, when her family came over 2001, her mum was a nurse, and she always thanks the Labour government because she was able to bring her family over as well. Her dad, her 2 sisters, the whole family were able to come over, and you know, she's got that undivine trenched loyalty to the Labour Party, which, you know, I completely respect. So, you know, it'll be a 2-1 in my. So if my son does end up voting Labour, then maybe he's just cancelling out my vote anyway. So I'm going to vote with my conscience. But it's the thing, the sacred vote. My vote don't mean shit. It really doesn't. It's not going to affect the election. You know, I'm still telling you folks. I'm still saying to you folks, you know, think about voting tactically in your area. Look at what's going to happen in your area. But you're going to do what you want to do. Anyway, next. Before we go on to the next topic, the camera comes. Hi folks, sorry about I inadvertently knocked the camera while fiddling about, but we're back, and you will get to see Brighton. We're here in Brighton now, so we'll end the video in Brighton on this glorious sunny day. Now, the next topic I want to talk about, Russia and Ukraine. It's going to get spicy in the comment section. But before we get on to that, if you can just loan me your ear for a couple of minutes, I just want to say thanks again to VIOFO, the awesome guys that sent me this dash cam. I've had it for a couple of weeks now, the very dash cam you're watching this video on, and I couldn't be happier with it. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, just video quality alone, it's so good. The 4K, even at night time. I mean, look at the skies in this video here. The picture quality is incredible. This thing really is the Ferrari of dash cams. It does absolutely everything, and this is the thing, not, you know, obviously you got the security perks of a dash cam, which is great, but also people just want good video quality. Maybe you're driving somewhere nice, you want to film it, you want to take pictures at a click of a button, and you know, all those things are available to you. Maybe you want to vlog and put out YouTube videos like me. This camera's fantastic, but also all the great features that come with it. I love the fact that it's basically a CCTV camera on your driveway permanently, that is linked to your phone. You know, any disturbances that you hear outside, pick up your phone, you can see what's going on. even if someone breaks into your car, before they get the chance to pull out the camera because they see there's a camera in there, you've got it loaded on your phone. You can see them. It's great. It's absolutely fantastic. It's got parking mode that senses any vehicles moving in front of you while you're parked. It really is fantastic. I couldn't be happier with it. And if you guys want to buy one, if you want a discount, you can go check the link down below. Vanman Talks viewers will get a discount on that. Go follow that. Now, back to the topics of the video, Russia and Ukraine. So basically this came about where I'd done my video on Andy, the Gabby Cabby's views, opinions on immigration. And I said the guy should really look into the topic a bit more, do a bit more research. And I happened to talk about Russia and Ukraine, and the point that I was making really was quite a harmless point, but it got quite a lot of comments from people. The point I was making is that if Russia take over Ukraine, or even a half portion of Ukraine, it's going to leave a very volatile world where the Western world will have to up their military spending. It was an argument against the money that we're spending right now. A lot of people, you know, especially with the US election coming up, people over in the US that aren't even in Europe are quite disgruntled at the fact of paying all this money to Ukraine. You know, why are we funding? You know, we can't even sort out our own country. Why are we spending so much money in Ukraine? And my argument was that if we live in a world where Russia control Ukraine or half of Ukraine and have their eye on Estonia, Lithuania, every Western democracy will be upping their military spending by billions. So if you're just talking about it in a purely money sense, I think it's a better investment to help them now. And yeah, this got a flood of comments, and because the video that I was doing was arguing that this chap Andy should be doing more research on topics, I got a flood of comments saying I need to do more research in this area. I need to do more research on NATO influence on Ukraine. I need to do more research on rigged elections in Ukraine. And you know, this is the thing with this topic, and lots of topics. You know, Palestine and Israel is another classic example. These things are so complex, and what people do is they just pick a side and they just listen to that one viewpoint. You know, I could sit here going down a wormhole of NATO intervention in Ukraine and rigged elections, or I could go down a rabbit hole of the other side of the pro-Ukraine side. You know, all I do is, we can't take on all the information of everything that's going on in the world. We just can't. I don't know the ins and outs of what's going on in Myanmar at the moment with their war and stuff like that. All I can do is just look at what we know and what I can see. And, you know, when I look at this situation in Ukraine and Russia, I see Putin, I see who he keeps as friends, you know, North Korea, China. I look at what he's done, sanctioned murder. You know, we know this. This is not conspiracies or political opinion. You know, right here in England, in Salisbury, we know that Russian state sanctioned murders. Look at Russia as a whole, the freedom of speech that they have in that country, the fact if you call it a war, you get put in prison. You know, when you look at these things objectively, you know, this is what I do when I try and form an opinion, try and understand a very complex situation that has got very, very staunch advocates on both sides of the story. I just look at it objectively and look at what I see. You know, where would I want to live in Russia? Or if I was Ukrainian, would I want to be a part of Russia? Or would I want to be a democratic country? You know, I mean, that's what makes this so interesting as well, because Ukraine were a part of Russia. They were a part of the USSR. And as far as I know, they've been wanting to become a member of the EU. They've wanted to join NATO. Ironically, out of fear, I guess, from being attacked by Russia. Which is probably justified, right? And, you know, even if this stuff is true about NATO intervention in Ukraine, you know, that's a situation for Ukraine to sort out. It's not for Russia, a foreign power, to come and invade Ukraine because there's rigged elections in Ukraine. That's an issue for Ukraine to sort out, not Russia. It's just, and like I say, I just look at it subjectively, look at the facts that we know, that is common knowledge. I don't like who Putin keeps as friends. I don't like the way Russia is led. I don't like the freedom of speech and the sanctioned murders that comes from his regime. And I don't like the fact that he thinks he can just come in and start taking over the largest country in Europe. This can't be tolerated. It can't be tolerated. And going back to the original point of, in the long run, we will have to spend so much more money on military spending if we live in a world where Putin controls Ukraine, or even half of Ukraine, and has his eyes on Lithuania, Estonia. Yeah. Comment sections should be fun. Oh god! So the state of that hotel that I just walked past. It was interesting. Before I leave, but I'm just going to put one more thing. There was they were asking for questions on the candidate for Kemp Town, East Brighton, on what things you'd like to see in Brighton. That was my number one question. Brighton seafront it's almost a depressing place right now. You got that hotel that was on fire, and it's just not really. I'm not seeing any progress on it getting fixed. I'm seeing more boarded up retail outlets and buildings on the seafront that are not doing anything. The Madeira Drive terraces, the Victoria terraces here that you see here painted green, if you drive along the seafront, are falling apart, decrepit. I mean, this just shows the decay of this country over the last 14 years. It's so depressing. It really is, that they just, council funding has just not been able to keep up with this beautiful Victorian terrace that we have here in Brighton, and it's just falling apart. It's so sad. And that was my question, whether they're actually going to do anything about the upkeep of it. But yeah, boarded up houses in, I've got another subject to talk about now briefly. Boarded up retail units is one thing that's very, very much frustrating me. Those of you may know that I run a very, very small business where I sell second-hand furniture, and I do it all online, and it can be quite volatile at times, having that to rely on. And I've always loved the idea. I'd love to have a physical shop. I pay for storage at the moment. I have a storage unit where I store all my furniture, but I'd love to have a physical shop, but it's just unaffordable with business rates and everything else. And it pains me that I see so many boarded up shops in Brighton, so many shops that are empty, and they will not bring down the rent. If the rent was at a sensible price, I would have one of those and they'd be full. But I don't know, those of you that don't know too much about the topic, is the reason that they won't bring down rents is because it brings down the value of the property. As soon as they bring down rent, that's showing that the property is not worth as much as it's currently valued up. So that's why people are not, because you'd think if you owned one of these shops, why not bring the rent down? Surely half the amount of rent is still better than no rent at all. But like I say, the reason being is it devalues the property as a whole, so they won't bring it down. I'd love to see something more going forward from a Labour government on this one, because I'm here, I'm ready. I'm currently giving my money to Storage Mart for a storage unit. I'd love to give that money over to an actual landlord and a physical shop. I'd love to have a physical shop and actually maintain the beauty of an area rather than boarded up shops, and actually have local businesses thriving. Anyway, that's it for me today, folks. If you enjoyed the video, click a like. If you haven't subscribed, you can subscribe up top. I'm going to enjoy this lovely day now. Hope you enjoy your day, your weekend, whatever you're doing. Until next time, take care. Britain first flag. Oh my god, what is going on in fucking Whitehall? Britain first, a bunch of pricks.